July 21st workshop meeting of Marlborough Township Board of Education. Cindy, would you please call the roll?
Good evening, everyone. Mrs. Dean? Here. Mrs. Ennie? Here. Mrs. Lou Rudell? Here. Mr. Marshall?
He's here, but
Mrs. Rosenwald?
I'm here.
Mrs. Wolf?
Here.
And welcome.
Thank you.
And Mr. Lalansky.
Here. Please be advised this meeting is being held in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975, the Sunshine Law. Adequate notice of the date, time, and agenda is sent to the Asbury Park Press and the news transcript. Has been posted and filed with the Marlborough Township Clerk. Copies have also been sent to each district school and other area newspapers in accordance with the law. I'm going to bring your attention to, but I'm not going to read in its entirety, statement of videotaping of public portion of Board of Education meetings, a public session statement, as well as no smoking on school grounds. All right, please rise and join me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Review the agenda tonight. We'll be having a public session open to any item, followed by we do have an addendum on personnel matters, followed by discussion on our referendum. We'll have old business, new business, and a final public session. Do we have anything for executive tonight?
No.
I don't. So there will be no executive session tonight. So, that being said, we'll begin with our public session of any items. Any member of the public wish to address the board on any item?
Yeah, they have the addendum.
Got it.
Okay. Okay, seeing none, we are going to move to that addendum number 1. Victoria, mind reading, please? Yep.
The Superintendent of Schools submits the following resolution for approval. Number 1, Employment, Director of Human Resources. I so move.
Thank you, Victoria. Seconded by Craig. Any discussion on personnel matters? Seeing none, Cindy, please call the roll.
Who did the second? I'm sorry.
Craig.
That's what I thought. Mrs. Rosenwald?
Yes.
Mrs. Wolf?
Yes.
Mrs. Ennie?
I abstained because I wasn't here for the interview.
Mrs. Lou Rudell?
Yes.
Mr. Marshall?
Yes.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
And Mr. Lalansky.
Yes. And welcome, Dr. Hart, to the Township of Marlborough. We look forward to you joining our family. So, wish you a good future. All righty. We'll move on to our discussion of the referendum, sir.
Okay. Congratulations, Dr. Hart.
Thank you very much, Dr.
Now you can officially do paperwork. Put your PhD to use with our forms. Good luck.
My moral support.
There you go.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Good night.
Take care.
Bye.
Thank you. Safe travels.
Thank you, everybody. Okay, so what we wanted to do was to bring everybody together for one last discussion and make sure that we can have any unanswered questions that we can physically answer at this point. So what I thought made the most sense is to have Ted recap and Steve recap our projects on both the Avid side and our priority projects to just make sure that everyone agrees and that we have a firm discussion so that you have to actually officially take action on the 28th, not tonight. Ted, floor is yours.
You can take that out of the...
Good evening, everyone. The project really is in not in 2 sections, but it really is in 7 sections, and that's because there is the addition being planned for the Abbott Center, and each individual 6 buildings have to be submitted separately because they are separate buildings, and that's how the Department of Education requests us to submit plans. So specifically, the list of drawings and so forth are really 7 different plans, but I understand the context of your statement. So on May 6th, we submitted drawings for the addition down to the Department of Education. It included all the components necessary for their approval. Certainly, we get questions and we go back and forth, and that's a normal process. They have 90 days for their review. We are in the middle of that process right now, hopefully getting towards the end of that process, and we expect to hear back from them soon regarding that approval. So that was one that we did. Shortly thereafter, we submitted the other 6 projects, again, by building. They were at, how in-depth would you like me to get? And I can get as in-depth as you would like. I can have a brief overview of each project, or would you prefer I go specific? I can be specific at each building if you would like, sir.
Whatever you feel the board needs to know to be.
Okay,
vote
fair
properly
enough.
this week
Fair
for
enough,
the expert.
fair enough. So let me get my, bear with me for a second. Okay, so the 6 buildings that Steve and I had made recommendations to the Board of Education, and believe we've been received word back that those were the recommendations that we should be moving on, are 6 buildings, inclusive of Asher Homes, Robertsville, Frank DeFino Central, Frank J. Dugan, the Marlboro Elementary School, and the Marlboro Middle School. We are obviously at the tail end of a report that we did for the district. Steve and I went through each of the buildings. We looked at every component. We walked into every room in your schools and made an analysis and basically told you what our thoughts were, our recommendations. In many cases, the MEPs were, which is mechanical, electrical, plumbing systems, were given a rating, but that didn't necessarily relate to the date, but that was a good thing to start with. How old is the system? How many years left is on the system? What is the replacement value of that system? And we did that, and then at the end of the day, when we got through the whole thing, we were asked to give you, the board, our best guess on what we think is the most important issues at each school, independent of the other schools. Some boilers are older than others, some windows are older than others, some roofing is older than others, and so forth and so forth. So as an example, I'll give you an example of one of the buildings at Asher Homes. We saw that the building needed to, what we would recommend, the replacement of all the exterior windows, the replacement of the HVAC systems in all areas, the replacement of the boiler pumps in the expansion tank at that building, the replacement of main distribution panels, panel boards, and feeders, and certainly Steve is here to go into more detail, the replacement of the existing fire alarm system, as is now a zone system. We want to bring that up to contemporary standards. And part of the HVAC system replacement would be a new automatic temperature control, which allows the district to control temperatures and humidity levels and so forth and so on at all the buildings remotely rather than at the site, and more specifically at the room at the site. So it gives a lot more control. We believe it's a very cost-effective thing to add on to the system, and it's very normal. And, yeah, of course. And at the end of the day, it saves a tremendous amount of energy.
I just want to clarify, because I asked Dr. Hips the question prior. Anytime in this report you refer to HVAC, even if there's not existing air conditioning now and it's only heating, we are putting in air conditioning.
That's correct.
In every building, in every spot that's in, any
That's
spot in the
correct.
building that's currently heated and occupied would have air conditioning.
That's correct.
Okay, so I'm going to build on what you said.
Sure.
Okay, so I'm going to get, I know Michael said it his way, but I want to say it my way. So it says here replacement of HVAC systems. So are you just replacing it in the areas that have the air conditioning now? Or are you going to put air conditioning in every room, in every school that does not have air conditioning? I'm repeating what you
that's
said,
fine.
but I just want to hear it with my own ears, with my words. Every room that does not have air conditioning in every school, it will have air conditioning in it when you get done.
That's correct.
Okay, because the reason I'm asking you, and I know I'm interrupting you,
That's right.
is because in the November report that we were given, you gave us, I don't know if you have this, Craig, well, you do, because it was on the, in the green notes. Because in the report that we got in November, it came out to
That was way back then.
19,231,000 to do that HVAC. And then when I added up the HVAC to air condition the schools in this report that was revised for June 1st, it comes out to 15,482,000, which is approximately $4,200,000 less. And that concerned me greatly because, and that's why I keep saying, are you air conditioning every room in every school? Every room. Because there is a $4 million difference.
Yes.
You also have the option of giving us another revised report and coming down another 4 million.
I would like to do that for you, but
So
Okay.
you're either, really, the bottom line is replacing and adding where necessary.
Yes.
that's correct. Yes. I appreciate your request for clarification.
Okay, because,
You're correct.
you know, it is $4 million less, so I just want to make sure that I'm doing that.
Looked at all the details of the
Okay.
equipment
Okay.
also, when you did that back in November, correct?
Correct.
Say what?
What I clarified was that when they did that back in November, it wasn't with all the detail they did with doing the facility study. So now that they've gone in every building
Have more
and looked at,
information.
exactly.
Well, because the
So-
same thing is when I looked at the boilers, you know, and I just looked at that, we have omitted putting a boiler in DeFino, and in the original November report,
We need it.
the board, well, hold on, but the original report included DeFino, and it was $2,208,000, and now we've omitted DeFino, and it's costing, I'm sorry, it was originally $1,968,000. You have omitted DeFino, and it is now $2,208,000 to do 3 boilers.
And again, to be very clear, those were done at a cursory to get a ballpark estimate. We were asked by that. They weren't specific, meaning they weren't detailed, and that is the reason why we believe that the board benefited from the feasibility study, or excuse me, the facility study that we just finished.
Okay, but
We were able to get more detail. So to answer your question, which is a great question, seriously, we were able to analyze that one boiler a little bit further, get a little closer to it, see what kind of lifespan it had left, and it didn't make the final really, really, important stuff. Could it be? Well, of course. Absolutely. We could add everything on the list. But we were asked to give you the most important things. And from that perspective, that's what we did. That's the best answer I can give you. Because it could be $45 million worth of capital stuff, and we didn't think that it was necessary to do $45 million worth of capital stuff. We felt that this was the most important things that could be done, or that had to be done, outside of a normal budget. Because some things, as you know, can be done. They're small items, smaller items, can be done within a budget year to year. They wouldn't necessarily make the list, because either A, they could be done a little bit later, or B, they weren't small enough to be done inside of a budget.
Well, I'm concerned about doing a boiler within the regular budget when a boiler now has jumped in cost from $400,000 to $800,000. So I'm concerned about where the board will get, that type of money within a budget, on a regular basis, because we have boilers ranging from $588,000 to $882,000. So,
Point noted.
those are not small amounts of money. to put into a regular budget.
Okay.
So, you know,
I didn't mean to stop you from the whole
No,
overview.
so
Let him continue, so we can
Those are
certainly get
fine.
back to that.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
So, okay. Now, in my executive summary, which I believe I gave to the board, the items vary at each school, so I wouldn't have necessarily everything at each school or even in the magnitude. Each building is different size. Each building is a different configuration. If they were all the same, built the same year, they would have the same items more than likely, but they're not. They're a little bit different year vintage, so they vary slightly. At Robertsville, the windows, the HVAC, the boilers, the panels are all there, but we've included the water heater. Again, we included the water heater because we felt that that was something that we wanted to do more quickly than something else. As we move to DeFino, similarly, as the first one, at Dugan, it's really only the HVAC and the fire alarm, where all the other systems seem to be, because it's a little older building. It's a slightly older building. Marlboro Elementary is one of your older buildings. It has all the components that we just talked about, including the water heater. And the middle school, we were, again, choosing things, and we included the replacement of the emergency generator at that location. So again, we tried to pick the most important things, the things that were poor or fair to poor in the report, and things that kind of jumped off the page at us, and things that tried to make sense in the most important things. Also, please understand that part of our selection were systems that we thought would easily, I do say that easily, and I'm sort of joking with my friend to my right, easily be funded by the Department of Education. And I don't mean that to be funny, but these are systems that are normal capital replacement projects that should easily fall under that guise. So we selected those. If it was maybe a maintenance issue, or it could have been a maintenance issue, it didn't make the cut. We tried to be very selective and pick the most important things.
I think it's important to recognize our first blush was looking at a prioritization of good, fair, and poor. We narrowed it down to poor, and then we took the poor and we looked at what could potentially be an emergent project where it would almost be an emergency if you didn't begin to think in terms of a referendum content for that. And we also made sure the list satisfied what qualifies for referendum content. So we took two cuts at it. And funding wise, yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
That's really my summary.
So if I'm going back to Bonnie's question on the boiler, what you're saying to us by not putting this list is you're not seeing the immediate need in the near future that this boiler is going to need to be placed. Is that what you're saying by not putting on this list?
Correct.
Okay.
Could you quantify near future? I know it's crystal ball's tough, but I mean I don't foresee doing this very often.
Okay.
So 10 years, 5 years.
We tried to make the decision if a system is within a year or 2 years of its useful service life, and we're using standard or past it, that would meet the criteria. Boiler plants, if they're maintained properly, can have a little bit longer service life than what's on a standard Department of Energy list that says this is when you should replace it. Your staff does a very good job of maintaining your boilers, and that's why you've gotten some of the life out of some of these boilers. Some of these boilers are 55, 60 years old, so they're on the list. You've also replaced some of the boilers under previous capital projects. You have relatively new boilers in a couple of the schools. So you've addressed needs almost on an emergent basis, and we're trying to follow through with your prior approach by putting that into the referendum. So I guess the answer would be, if you have 5 years left on a boiler, and it's still in the service life, I would not change it out. It wouldn't make the cut, in my opinion. Now, you folks, it's your buildings. We'd be more than happy to modify the list, but that's what we used as a criteria.
Okay.
Thank you. I'll open up to the rest of the board. Sure.
Just a question for the construction. You replace the criteria when you do the analysis on the how many of the system and how many years in the system. Just say, for instance, for the boiler, right? Do you feel like, say, how many years do you think will be replaced? How many years will be left for you for the support the school system? Based on what standard you can reference to, how many years left for the, compared to industry standard? What's your judgment on this?
You've answered that question many times. You're the best at that, but I'm going to follow up.
We use the United States Department of Energy CAS manual
Okay.
to make a determination, and we follow that as the basis to make a determination when to repair a unit. But we also do talk to staff and look at people if they're maintaining water treatment, if they're doing routine maintenance, if they're following annual maintenance, and we factor that into it. A boiler plant nowadays, generally the criteria is 20 to 25 years. So we use 20 years. The older boilers from the 60s and 50s, they were built differently and they lasted longer. They just don't make them like they used to.
Apparently.
So I appreciate your question. Did I answer it?
Yeah, just say basically say the elementary school is old school, right? So the boiler 20 years, you just have a clear cut. Oh, this is 20 years. We need to change. That's based on your standard. Just that's my question. Falling down to.
We met with the committee a while ago, and I made a statement that it made everybody laugh. At least it made everybody chuckle or smile. And the statement was very clear, and it's really why we do the facility study. Just because it's old doesn't mean it's bad. Just because it's new doesn't mean it's good. So going in and the work that Steve does when he goes through, he sends a team of ants into these buildings, checking all the systems and making sure that everything from the beginning to the end is working properly. And we just don't take the age as the be-all, end-all. You know, there are really good ways of doing this, and I think that helps with the value. And I just don't want to say 20 years, that's it, or 50 years, that's it. We look at it, we analyze it, and make sure that it is. In most cases, 50-year-old boiler, you have to replace it, but not necessarily every time. Now, don't forget, the Dugan boiler is 1986. Significantly different than the other boilers. So that's why, Steve, you know, we kind of peeled back on our original recommendation. But, you know, we had a chance to look at it. So we don't necessarily just look at it as, wow, those windows are 30 years old, they should be replaced. You know, are they being maintained? Are the seals being kept up? Are they breaking? Is the caulking helping? Is it not? Is there no sealant backer rod? We look at all those things to make sure that it goes into our criteria of selecting something good versus bad.
Okay, Craig?
Yeah, I'm looking at all the expenses, and is it safe to assume that, for example, just using replacing exterior windows as an example of this, that there's going to be some utility efficiencies going on here? So, in other words, right now, I'm assuming one of the reasons that you're suggesting that we replace these is because heat and air conditioning is literally going out the window. So, if we do this replacement, is there any way to estimate what kind of a benefit we're going to get in terms of savings on utilities?
The answer to that question, you want to start?
I will.
Okay.
Yeah, he was pretty adamant. I hand that over to him.
There are many different factors in looking into the program and approach which you're taking on. Some of your buildings aren't completely air conditioned. I add air conditioning. I don't care how many windows I replace, your bills are going to go up. I can't tell you that they won't. A good rule of thumb is the most important building envelope to replace in a school is the roof.
Right.
So if we replace the roof with the new R values that are required, that's where you'll see your true energy, quote-unquote, reduction in energy usage. It may not be savings because of the amount of cooling you're putting into the building, but we're also recognize we're going to put in higher efficiency mechanical equipment, if this goes through. Automatic temperature control. These are tremendous energy efficient systems. We're using contemporary design. We're going to follow all of the energy requirements for the model energy code, which is part of building code. We could do some analysis on your buildings. I would much rather give you a square foot based on some of our prior efforts, but I can run computer programs and simulations. I don't think it's a good benefit to the district at this point, but you'll have more efficient buildings. Is that a roundabout answer? Because there's no real way to predict the saving of energy unless they look at each individual school on a specific
Right.
basis.
Well, I guess I'm going overall. This whole
Right.
project with all the schools. We're spending X dollars.
Right.
And if you're using the term efficiency, as a layperson, I'm translating that into potential dollars saved. Whether it's through less units being used, but whatever it is, there could be some kind of a savings in addition to obviously a better environment for the staff and the students and all of that goes with it. Right. But, we're very sensitive in terms of the financial impact of this and actually, having to go out to get this funded. So, there's got to be some some quantifiable positives to doing all this.
The efficiencies you say would offset the additional
Microphone.
cost for the air conditioning.
It may.
Okay, what I asked was that with replacing these things and the efficiencies that we would save would offset the increased costs for the air conditioning. So the net
You said
effect.
it may.
Yeah,
Okay.
so they can clarify that, because
But-
I'm not the expert.
But Windows, really, there's two criteria to Windows. First of all, the direct answer to your question, which nobody ever wants to hear, is you never really get a great payback on a window per se. But there's more reasons to do that. I mean, there's obviously creature comforts. There's the kids sitting next to the windows are the ones feeling the effects of the drafts through the window. There's no question about that. However, the new windows will also have a coating on it, which will be a better glare resistance for the room itself, and in and of itself won't allow as much sunlight to pass through, therefore making it more efficient. So it's hard to quantify it, but at the end of the day, I always say two things. Number one, the windows will never probably pay for themselves, maybe 30 years. Number two, you got to replace your windows when you have single pane windows and the seals are broken. You have to.
Fair enough.
Sure, ma'am.
All the windows in every school are being replaced?
Only the ones that I. So Asher Homes, yes. Robertsville, yes.
The ones where you've listed them?
DeFino, yes.
It's like
Not Dugan.
No, I realize that. Only where they're, let me rephrase my question.
I think I know your, yes.
Not a
Where
memorial,
you've
not
listed this, where you've listed them, in those schools, every window in those schools will be replaced?
Great question. Thank you for clarifying. The answer is no. I was very specific that there are these single-paned windows. So if you have a 1995 edition that was done at Marlborough Elementary School as an example, those windows in the back, those are insulated windows. I'm not going to replace those. No reason to. Wouldn't tell you to do that. These are the single-paned windows. In other words, they built in 1960, they had one single pane of glass. When those seals go, it's really bad.
So we're replacing them with a single pane?
No, we're replacing them with insulated glass windows to match the 1995 vintage.
Okay, so I read this wrong. Replacement of single pane.
Yes, ma'am.
It just didn't say
Okay.
what you're replacing them with, I think. was
Yes.
the
Well,
question.
my executive summary did go into a little more detail.
So-
This was just for purposes of keeping it simple.
Okay, so I read this wrong. So
No, it's okay.
was reading it as replacing single, I read it wrong. Okay.
Yes. You know what, Mrs. Rosenwald, I don't think they make single pane windows anymore.
That's why I was
Not
reading that.
in our neck of the woods anyway.
It didn't make any sense to me.
Maybe down in Florida.
I got that. Okay, so my question to you, the other question I have on this is, so if this comes out to $26,300,000, and the air conditioning portion of this is $15,482,000, so that's somewhere in the 11 million, shy of $11 million worth of other repairs. And we got a report from you from when you did the facilities report that said that we had $46 million in maintenance that had to be done, and $23 million that was basically necessity. Where's the other $12 million that really should be done? What did we not do? What things weren't really done?
I thought that you said the original report wasn't as accurate as the new report because you went more in depth. I don't know if that's $12 million worth of it, but I heard you say that.
Things that, we listed that were either fair to poor, that made the list to get a number, but didn't feel that we had to do it right now.
Say it, but I wanted him to kind of tell me what he felt wasn't.
As an example, some of the roofing, that we understand there's a system that you're going to put into place that does some roofing every year. that can be part of the budget, that we can do that more simply, and I think that's okay, because they're not quite ready yet, except for the ones that we're doing presently. A lot of miscellaneous. I mean, I have the report here. I can go through it if you like, but it's just some of the things that just didn't quite, they're similar items, but just didn't quite make the list of the final pour. Some architectural, some HVAC, some electric, some plumbing.
If I can clarify something, because I'm looking at the report, the total estimated costs for everything in this whole study was $45,704,000.
Almost $46 million.
Yes, yes. So I heard you say it was 45 plus the 20, and
No,
it
no,
wasn't.
no, no,
It's,
that's
okay,
not
I'm
what
sorry.
I said 46, about $46
Okay.
million, and where this is almost $11 million that we're covering in maintenance here. So basically, we're kind of now doing quick math. We've now done what, about 35 million is now in that report that we're not covering in this referendum.
No, in this referendum, you're covering the 26, because what you're looking at is that 45 is all costs in. I have the 30, what I gave you was a breakdown that showed construction costs only of 36,000. We're doing all the priority things that we're doing, but one of the things he's got in these reports are roofs, which is what we're doing over time. Like we're doing half the middle school roof this year, we'll do the other half of that next year.
But we're only doing 11 million out of that 46
No,
million.
we're not.
Well, the 40 also includes the air, doesn't it?
No,
Yes,
in that report,
yes, in this,
Yeah.
Included the air conditioning.
that
Yeah.
included the air conditioning in there?
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't remember it being in there, but I stand
Yes-
to be
yes, ma'am.
corrected.
There's going to be maintenance stuff that we need to do every year.
I was just,
Like your house.
I just opened up
Like
my,
your
my
house.
book here, and I was going to give you a little more better answer.
Regardless of a referendum, this board always has to do maintenance, and
Right.
we've always asked for a better maintenance plan than we had before. So going forward, we're going to need, Thomas is here with us tonight.
Yes.
A maintenance plan going forward, that's going to cover some stuff in your other list
I
that has to be
Yes.
done on a...
understand that, but I have to also make this statement. I have to make this statement. I voted no on a budget because the business administrator started her presentation this year by saying that we were $2.5 million in the red because of contractual obligations, and then we went into bank cap, and somewhere somebody had said that we had to pay the pipe for this year, and I think it was you who said it, because...
And Mr. Lelunsky, I've told you about going to CAP.
Cap.
We've talked about
We
this.
talked about it, and we would have to go to cap because of our contractual obligations at one point. So I am very worried going forward about, and I've always spoken about maintenance from the day I walked on this board, because we never had a maintenance plan. And I'm applauding the board that we take this so seriously now, and we have to take this very seriously. And I'm still taking this very seriously, and that's why I'm so concerned about this, and that's why I keep speaking about it. But understand that it makes me very nervous when we spoke about the budget this year and dealing with this and going into bank cap because of our contractual obligations, and we're speaking about going for a referendum, that I understand what we're doing, and we're dealing with the maintenance issues and $46 million of maintenance issues that we had Ted look at, and we have to look at that very seriously. And then we're talking about how are we going to pay for these in the future? How are we going to pay for this in the future? And that's my, how are we going to put that in the budget?
But don't you have built-in maintenance in every budget? I mean, we had
have about
we had surplus in maintenance years that we've used.
Right,
But-
but we
And
have
I know
maintenance.
about that too. I
We have
understand
maintenance
that.
in the
Right.
budget. We usually spend between $600,000 and $700,000. This year, we have that budgeted, plus the money for the roof. So, and the roofs we're going to do one by one to get them all done. But you can't, there's no way I could ever fit in these projects that need to be done in a regular budget.
Some of the referendum project.
No, this has
That's
to
right.
be done. This has to be done. I got that.
No,
I'm talking about,
Yeah, Bonnie's saying, can I try for a second?
Get
So
started.
what Bonnie is saying is, and I think this is for Steve and Ted to clarify. Obviously, we're hitting approximately $26 million out of our priority projects out of the grand total, was it 46?
Well, that was all costs in, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So there's obviously a difference there.
20.
I think what we're looking for is we want to make sure that we're going to be able to tie that into a regular budget and not have, the roof come crashing down on us and have to deal with things emergently in not addressing more priority projects now. Will we have a plan to address those in a systems approach where we know that, look, and I understand, we have boilers that are very old. So I'm going to assume and take a really good shot that in a lot of other districts, a 60-year-old boiler is going to look a lot different than it does in Marlboro because we've done a great job, in servicing boilers. So I think that's at least the heart of what I'm thinking. And Bonnie, are you?
yes.
This is a great segue, if I could. But I'd like to answer your question a little bit more in depth, and then I'm going to go to my segue. I've opened up the book here, and these are the kind of things that the BA is talking about. Replacement of any kind of floor material is in here that we didn't add. Replacement of existing corridor and other wood doors and hardware in the building. Replacement of any ceilings that we found that were not in very good shape. Any kind of paving, concrete, or any other type of site repair work. Again, all these things can be done on a very low-scale basis, one at a time, a little bit of an area at a time, and that was one of the criteria that we tried to meet, as well as any exterior doors. So think about that. That's probably a lot at some of your older buildings, not as much as some of your newer buildings. That can be done, one at a time, two at a time, five at a time. We can keep Thomas busy by doing some of those projects that are the most important without making it seem like, boy, that one or two would be really great to do. And you might not get that kind of funding benefit, because one of the other criteria that the DOE loves to throw at us is replacing a system in its entirety. So I can't go down there and say, I'd like to do part of this referendum, I'd like to do 4 doors. 4 exterior doors. They're going to say, sorry, thank you, you can do those, but we're not giving you funding for that. So if we're not giving you funding for that, does it necessarily have to be in the referendum? That's the board's choice, of course. But we decided not to add that to the list and keep it as low as we could, getting the most value that we could in the referendum. That was our criteria. And Bonnie, your question's great. I really do appreciate that. And those are the kind of things, I wanted to clarify that. My segue is, which answers Dr. Hibbs's, once they finally get the LRFP up and running, my goodness gracious, when is that going to be? I don't know. But this is the time to actually take the rest of those projects, categorize them in 5 years, and make sure that you put them in your plan. That's what that's for. That's what that time frame of all those other $20 million, whatever the number is, $19, $20 million, all that will be in your plan, because I hope that you're going to let me do that, and we'll allocate those dollar value and year. You'll have it.
Which is what it should have always been.
Should have always been like that. I mean,
No argument.
We're all going to agree that. No one's going to disagree with that.
And you can prioritize those as you want. Thomas will be a big part of that. I know that the board will be a big part of that, but he'll tell you which ones, and we'll help to strategize on how to do those over the next 5 years in your long-range facility plan.
Which is where I was going. Good
Okay.
segue. Thank you for helping me.
Yeah, I think that I just agree with the Dr. Hibb just mentioned. We have a systematic approach, right? To say you do whatever you have with the study, you are architectural, whatever you are. And you mean right now you do conduct studies, right? We have 6 elementary school, and we have boiler, we have roof, we have the we have based on the standard, you have different approach. You already do the investigation, and then you have a system plan for next year. We change what based on what? Do we have the study? You can give us feedback every year, right? We have say right now we replace boiler, say for just make instance, say Divino Central will replace a fire boiler for something, and they say the 10 years, and then for 10 years later, we need to what happened based on the the deficiency. They can make every year you will do evaluation like every other year. So you do maintenance.
What we're going to do, and I'll use an example that Thomas is doing right now, is we're painting, going around and painting the classrooms and stuff. But it's the same situation. We're marking that and putting down every classroom and the date we've painted it, and then we'll go back and set up that
Talking
plan.
about the long-range facility plan in another
Well,
way.
that's true
Another
too.
way.
But we're going to have a plan for all of this, so we'll know. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, at this building, we've done this, this,
Right.
this, and this.
Right.
10 years from now, what do we
But
need to be
that's what
looking at?
You just mentioned us and what Bonnie has been
Yeah,
talking
it
about
would
for
be easier
years
for
about
us,
our long-range.
5 year, 10 year, 20
Yes.
years. If we may not be here, but
I was
at
gonna
least
say, I ain't gonna be here.
I have a chart, something we will know right away instead of digging out. We have a 6
Well,
month
realizing
plan,
that truly, this is the first time. I mean, these two gentlemen can attest to it because they've been in every one of our buildings and stuff. But these boilers are, these HVAC systems are original systems. They're not, we haven't gone in very few places and replaced them.
They met the criteria of poor condition, not just age, poor condition. They're ready to be replaced. I think a great example would be water heater that had to be replaced on an emergent
Yeah,
basis
it is.
earlier this year. The tank was connected to the original boiler plant, which was on the list to be replaced. It got a pinhole leak in it, and we had to do it on an emergent basis where we were almost without hot water, and it created quite a bit of havoc for us. But we were able to pull it off. What we did with our list is we're trying to make sure that you don't have that type of a condition in the future. So that was the real criteria. Does that help?
Yeah, I was just saying, do we have inventory, say the inventory, then keep tracking certain, do we have the systematically keep tracking our inventory, boiler, window, or do we
We're
have?
going to. That's what this is.
That's what I'm trying to say, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
The long range, I don't think Joanne understands what the long range facilities plan is. Can you just do a 30-second overview for Joanne? Joanne, this should answer your question.
I was going to say, this is not.
30 seconds. Dr. Hibbs, you're tough.
Go.
Go.
Double it.
The long-range plan is a system that was started in 2001, and it's intended to keep track of three things. One, your enrollment. Two, which relates to how much building or renovation you need to do. And three, your capital projects. If you keep, those three are the big three in the plan, and you can keep updating it as you go along. They mandate you do it every 5 years. Or after your last approval. It's coming out at the end of the year, should be a much more user-friendly, should be, keyword, and hopefully, that will be a useful tool for the board to plan for those kind of things. Now, to be specific, I know I'm over my 30 seconds. It's not intended for maintenance projects. It's intended for capital projects. Maintenance projects is like painting and those kind of things. So it's intended to keep the big things, big picture stuff in front of you to help plan.
So who will maintain this system? You.
It's not really a system. It's it includes all the systems.
Yeah, that's
So
yeah.
what it would be is, Ted had mentioned a 5-year plan. So what would happen is, over the course of the next 5 years, as Ted and Steve mentioned, new doesn't mean good, old doesn't mean bad. We'll keep an eye on what's on the long-range facilities plan, and anything that we determine at that moment, running through the,
Yeah.
wait for me?
No, it can move up or down, and
Yeah.
back you can adjust it.
Yeah,
It's a living,
absolutely.
breathing document.
And that would run through what would be our facilities committee, our buildings and grounds committee, so that as a first discussion coming to the board, so that when we talk about what goes into a budget, they're going to give us we're going to have a great scope of work that needs to be done in the next 5 years.
So we know it's worthwhile to spending what's capital will be much easier, for the data
But again,
visualization. we'll
your
know right
long-range
away.
facility plan is not maintenance. That's not what we put in the budget every year.
Big stuff.
It's
a
big
big
stuff.
picture, everything.
Capital's the word for
Maintaining
big.
everything. Yeah.
Well, we have eyes on the ground for maintenance,
We do.
and we get a plan
So
that goes
every
through
time we
Cindy
have
and
the
comes to
data,
us
then
through
we
a
do-
budget every
Exactly,
year.
exactly.
Some districts keep a mini version of it for, like, for smaller maintenance things, for painting and stuff.
Yeah,
They
that's what
have
we're
the
starting
big
to
one,
establish right
And
now.
then some districts do like a mini version of it.
And Thomas has that right now because in the past we haven't had that, which is why some of our classrooms, I know it's a different talk show.
The question I keep asking is why we didn't have it. Why didn't we have something like, the first time you walked through November and you did this, it seems to me like, because I remember getting that book in the construction committee, and I was like, and you showed it to us. I was like, this is it? It's like this thick. It seems like when you walk through the first time, it was like when you go into a house as a wife, the first time you buy the home, you're like, okay, I want to do the carpets, I want to do the windows, and I want to do and then when your husband goes, okay, we only have this budget. Okay, well, we're going to leave the carpet, we're going to leave. Is that kind of what I'm getting from you? Is like, okay, we took the door handles, we took this off, we took that off, and that's why that money is not. I just don't want us that we took something off that might be big.
You give you your 9s.
Nothing was taken.
You gave us our 9s, and you took the 1s and put them to the side, and we're
9,
going to
3,
watch
1.
them
9 on
and put them
fire.
in our plan to keep track.
Great analogy. So nothing was removed from the book.
Okay,
Nothing was removed from the book.
okay.
We just prioritized what we thought was the best. Again, had to be a system entirety.
We asked you for everything, and you gave us everything. But now you're like, okay, now it's like the husband coming in with the wife, okay, now we just need
But
the.
I'm just worried, are we putting in air
Why are we the
conditioning?
bad guys?
And do we need it?
Because that's what you do.
Pass referendum.
Say that again, Bud? Say it again. You're nervous about what? The air conditioning?
Because, listen, I'm all in for the referendum. I've been all in for the referendum. But I've had so many people like calling me and banging down my door, and I'm getting it on both ends. Do we need the air conditioning? Do we not need the air conditioning? Do we need the air conditioning? Do we not need the air conditioning? And I'm just sitting here going.
I think that's a question for them to answer.
And I'm just sitting here saying, could the $15 million be better spent on something else that might be, are we missing something more important that the $15 million could be spent on that we're missing? And that's the question I'm asking, because I'm having people, angry, and I'm reading the blogs, and I'm having people like call me, and I'm having people stop me in supermarkets on both sides. And I'm kind of like saying, are we missing something? Are we not missing something? Are we missing something? Are we not missing something? We don't go to school in the summertime.
Can I give you a specific example? If I'm in Delfino and I have a 1956 building and I have classroom unit ventilators that are 50 years plus, and their service life is 25, and I get pictures, you're welcome to, I have 2,000 pictures of the different parts of the building, and you have to replace that. The cost to add air conditioning is probably 25% more. So if I have to buy the new unit anyway, that's really the decision the board has to make.
The second issue, which really pushes the first issue, is indoor air quality. Understanding that the unit ventilator is running, doing the best that it can under the years of age it is. The codes have changed. The amount of air required in each classroom has changed. There was a huge change in 1991. This man over here has been yelling in my ear since then. The code has changed. So there's more times that we have to exchange the air. In other words, replace the air in each room, in each of these buildings. It's significantly more than it was in 1956, which there barely was a code. So from an indoor air quality perspective, and I don't mean to cut you off, please hold your question for just a moment. From an indoor air quality alone, you should replace the units. The upcharge to go to air conditioning, 20-25% more, is that worth the value of air conditioning? We believe every district that we work with among states says yes. But so you at least have to do the one, and then the second one isn't that far of a journey to get to the second one. Does that answer your
That's what I was
question?
going to ask you, so it's for the entire system, this 15 million. So if you took 25, it's only 25% off of that 15 million that we'd be saving if there was no air. I just want to get it just clear to the public as I can. That it isn't just adding air, it's replacing the systems.
Correct.
And it's only a 25% upcharge to get the air, so the kids are not.
So
And the
we
system-
really have to make that very clear
That's what,
to the
Yeah.
public.
I also
Okay.
think because it's affecting all the schools, it makes it better.
because all the schools
When it
will
comes
not
to
have
the
an
ref-
extra. I
exactly,
think that's
Makes
right.
sense.
I
Have a
think when it
referendum,
comes
you want
to terms to
everybody to benefit.
referendum.
The other thing I want to add with this that Ted's talking about is the indoor air quality. We have children that are coming through that are more and more needy. So because of that, we're required to put in air conditioners
Allergies.
that are not efficient, that are window airs, and we've got to run electricity, et cetera. So this will save greatly.
Well, it would be anybody really that comes through our doors. I mean, staff members and
Absolutely.
students that
Yeah.
have medical needs.
Right,
And
that's what just
we
brought
put
to
air
attention,
conditioners in
ADA.
every year, several, if not more than several.
It's exactly what I said.
Read your mind.
There's a lot of districts that we see that are doing patchwork by, window
Yeah.
units and having to ship kids across town to go to a school that has air conditioning and they're not in their neighborhood school, and having to kind of switch, even staffing rooms around because of that reason.
Well, I'm glad I brought it up for
No,
this
it's a great point.
conversation, so that, it's out there for people to hear.
And realize that both ends of our schools are air conditioning. The early learning center is air conditioned, the two middles are air conditioned, but the stuffing in the middle is of an Oreo cookie is not.
Spot cooling is one of the most inefficient ways to treat a room on a room-by-room basis. It's very inefficient from an electrical standpoint because you're not looking at an overall system. And it's the most expensive because you're doing it in pieces, whether you're using window air conditioning units or using split systems. You're dropping money and cooling it, but you're cooling it in one of the most inefficient ways.
This analysis you did, it wasn't, as you can tell, I want the public to know, this wasn't something you did in 2 weeks. It was months of, because that's what the board asked for. And I know, I got to agree, I don't say this often, with Mrs. Rosenwald. We've been asking for the maintenance thing since I got on the board, since I watched her for the year before she was on the board, for years. And on the construction committee, we didn't have, I want the public to know we did not have a maintenance plan. We do not know as board members what's broke unless we're told. We're not paid employees that walk through these buildings. We would only see the paint not on the front of the thing at the school or when we would go and we would come back and we would ask and we'd be like, okay, they're going to get to that. But it's new now. We got new personnel, new people handling, new, I don't know what to say, just the idea with the new superintendent moving forward that this is an important thing to us. And I just, it's going to cost us to get these buildings where they need to be, but
Absolutely.
children deserve to be in a building that they're not cold and we're shifting the kids around at Dugan where something's going on, but we did not have this. And I appreciate you doing it. And I know it took months to do.
It was laborious, but that's okay. It gets to the end and it helps the board, and that's what our job was. I think that if leaving this last note here, not that I want to take any more questions, but saying focus on the HVAC means heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. And there's an R, but it's refrigeration. I won't get into that. But it's to focus on the heating and ventilating is just as important as the air conditioning. So when you're going out and telling this to people, it's HVAC. It's not just AC. So focus on that. Focus on the education of the heating and ventilation portion, just as important as the air conditioning component.
Yeah, because we don't want any, what we had this year, any parents coming saying, why is my son's child or daughter's child's room not heated?
Yes.
They're wearing their coats. You shouldn't have to wear a coat.
So this they want to make clarification. So the system you're going to put together for all the elementary school, you put all the documentation into the system, and the tracking will know which one going to be somehow good. If we have update, right? Say the window air conditioning, HVAC, somehow going some issue, someone did update. Then next year, so you come to the board meeting, you can show us the visualization in the computer, right? See what's going on. The data should be in the computer, right? For you, whatever you do, the studies you have for all elementary school, middle school will be put into the computer, right? Next year.
What about computer?
Can you do that? That's what I'm trying to say. Are they going
Well,
to?
you're
I don't know if
mixing
it's- so that's
apples and
computer.
oranges here because
It's just, every year going forward, as we've asked for in the past, at every budget, we should have a plan saying, this is what we're looking at the next 4 or 5 years. This is what we're doing next year, and that'll change the next year, because there'll be another year added on to the next 5 years. And that's what we should be looking at as a board every year, the things we can put into the budget. These are things that are not going to be able to put into budget, need to be do-nows, nines, Dr. Hiss will call them. And going forward, with Thomas here now, at the head of the Buildings and Grounds, these gentlemen here to help together with Thomas will come, we should be able to have every year when Sydney gives us the budget, the maintenance part of the budget of what's included this year, and we'll have a piece of paper that says, looking forward, this should be next year, that should be next year, going out 5 years.
You'll have like a scope of 5 years of
Yeah.
projects
a dashboard.
and stuff.
A
But that's
dashboard.
always going to be
It's an evolutionary
constant
document.
changing. It's a live document.
Because I was thinking right now, with the technology, when you put the data in, now we know certain time you can see that, oh, this is the things we need to have red light, red alert. So we know what's the things like a system like Windows, like boilers, other things. Oh, those things that we need to replace. They can write somehow we color code it.
But that would
so
be-
then we will know what's going in the scope. We know what's the budget. Then
No,
delete
that's
that.
long-range facility. That's a capital project. What we deal with in a budget every year is more maintenance things.
Maintenance.
Yeah, that's it. Or just say let's we try to resolve the issue. So what maintenance for 3 years, we still have to. We may now have a clear picture related to the budget issue. How much it will cost? What we need to replace,
We deal with
right?
that'll be the budget, those are budgetary items that would be dealt with on a yearly basis, and that would be generated from Cindy's office. And Cindy would be dealing with, we wouldn't necessarily see a long-range plan on maintenance. That would be an internal document that Cindy would maintain with Thomas.
Correct.
But the long-range facilities plan would be a document that the board would be able to see, because that would be a 5-year plan that would be generated that we would see.
Yeah, but you say I'm talking. Yeah, my mind is thinking is we have long range plan, we have short range plan.
We wouldn't see a
the more
short-range
detailed plan will
maintenance
be even the Cindy maintain. We still can see. We want to see. We put into system because those the people for them right already did substantial work for each elementary school. Also work right now in maybe on their head, maybe on the document, the paper. We can put into the system data like data entry time. We will be able to see in the long run with year, 2 years.
I believe we're using School Dude now, right?
Yes.
We are using School Dude now, which is a tablet program that
Right.
keeps track of all this. So these gentlemen give us our plans. I think I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
We have a referendum, it passes, we do all this work. And the maintenance work that's in the regular budget. Thomas and his staff, their job is to be the eyes, the boots on the ground, and report back to Cindy and to say what needs to be fixed, and the regular maintenance, talking about maintenance now, which will be in the budget, which we will see every year when we get presented the budget.
Right.
Now, something, nothing's black and white, something that's supposed to last 5 years, what he just said, something that's supposed to last
Might
5 years may
continue,
not last
right?
5 years, may
Right.
last 1 year. So Thomas changes the plan and comes to the budget, he says, oh, now we need this year, we don't need it 5 years, so now I'm sorry, it didn't last 5 years, warranty's up, we need
I'll give
whatever.
you a great example, the chiller at Memorial. It's a great example.
Yeah.
Sorry, but
Yeah, it doesn't mean good.
no.
I listen, Mr. Hopkins.
But
Does that help you?
Yeah, I'll try to make it seems a little bit complicated the whole big document, and we may not be, may not be very make clarity. Just make clarification, people can see even easier what need to be done, right? In the future, next year for the, by the standard again.
Thomas knows the job that's out in front of him. He's taken on the huge responsibility of maintaining our buildings, all of our buildings in the district, reporting back to Cindy. With the help of these gentlemen, I'm feeling confident that going forward, things will look different.
And they already do.
Yeah. Yes.
And if you want to see Morel, just let us know. You can walk around, not just the outside. I'm not being sarcastic. Go take a look at the inside, which is being repainted. Harvey has done a fantastic job. And I mean, shrubs. It's coming together. Everywhere. So the lower level stuff we handle with Thomas and Cindy. Big level stuff you'll handle as a board.
Okay. Do you have any other questions on the projects themselves?
I have
Sure.
just a couple more questions. Of course, I always have a couple more questions. When I looked at the plans, on the plans with the rooms drawn on them, there was no elevator. Was there a reason? Or I missed it, or whatever. I might have missed it.
Which one are you looking at?
Abbott, right?
Let's show.
I didn't.
I can't see it either, but
I have them on my plan. There is one.
There was none.
There has to be.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I didn't see it. I know on code it had it.
Well, actually, there is
Oh,
an
it is.
exception to that rule, but I won't get into that. But there is an exception.
Where
This
do you
does not
have
meet
it
that
at? Because I don't
exception.
see it labeled.
I didn't see it either. Thank you. I didn't see it labeled
If-
either.
if-
right here.
If you're coming through,
Show me.
Yeah, I'll show you.
Show me where it is, because I didn't see it.
Yeah, I have it.
It's right there.
It's where is Waldo? Come on.
Right. Here?
Yep, yeah, it is. It's right there,
First floor plan?
right there.
All right,
was
now come
covered
on.
with
Can
an
you make
X.
that a
Come
little
on.
bit bigger for our cold eyes? I mean, I
Wait a second, if I can see it.
Come here. Show me that one again.
Let me go like this.
Where's Waldo?
I know, I got long
You
arms.
have to
and
look
you
for the
know.
word ELEV.
It's in here somewhere.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry. Did you see it?
This
This is
is
the engineering drawing.
Thank you.
So the match, see where the match line is between the old and new building?
Oh, you got to
Just
go.
because the engineering drawing, they cannot change it.
Where's what?
It's over
And we are doing this, and we are going out for the 28
Right
classrooms,
here,
right?
ELEV, 28, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Where is it on yours?
Okay.
L of,
Can't you guys make these drawings bigger?
I have it in the house.
Oh, it's right there. ELEV.
yes.
Yep, I got you.
What we sent down
see it?
to the Department of
Yeah.
Education is much, much more than all.
It was painful, but I saw it.
For us old people.
Here, we'll go like this. Circle.
I'm usually good, because I do, I can find, when they had the Where's Waldo, my kids used to have the book and turn the page and they go, there, there.
Put a touch bar, you can make it wider, you can see it right away.
There you go. Yeah, we found it on Craig's.
All right,
All right,
so there's an elevator.
that was all I wanted to know.
that's it? Anybody else on the referendum itself? Thank you, gentlemen. We should talk about the procedure a little bit, no?
Yeah, and the other thing, also, before we go off, everyone has a copy of the executive summary that would have been, losing my pile here. Exactly, executive summary. This is an executive summary of all of the $40+ million things that Ted broke out for us. So what we're going to do is, there's nothing on here that is that can't be revealed and discussed. So what we're going to do is we're going to make this available on the website so that the public has access to this, and that'll be up tomorrow morning.
Just make sure the disclaimer's up there. This is everything, not the referendum.
Yes.
Are you putting this up too?
Is that
Yeah.
I'm getting blind. Is that the executive
No.
summary?
No.
No, you
One from
just
June
putting this
18th.
up
What it says, executive summary.
Yes.
without
No,
dollars.
Without.
Yes.
Correct.
Everything else is going to be released upon the recommendation of Terry Ann after the board takes action on the
But
28th.
this is going up first.
This is going to go up first, yes.
Okay.
Oh, thank you.
the executive summary.
Executive summary. I cut in.
No, that's all.
You said procedure, as in Terry Ann procedure.
Yes. Where are we? Where should we be? Where are we going?
Terry Ann? Yeah. Floor is yours.
All right, I'm gonna switch up to the. Is it? Do I really need the microphone?
Yes, you do.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay.
Money, so let's tie it in there.
Okay. You wanted to talk procedurally what needs to occur moving forward. And the starting gate, if you will, is the approval of the project and the resolution next week. What we've seen happen in the past in other districts, in an effort to communicate with the public, in an effort to provide information and be transparent, and in their eagerness to do that, they've said things prior to there being more definitive answers. So thus the reason for clarification tonight in the scope component, as well as moving forward answers relative to costs and things like that. We have seen well-intentioned boards in other communities release information prematurely, again, all well-intentioned, and in fact, it has led to obstacles that could have been avoided. And what we're trying to do is provide a smooth process with a momentum that builds leading up to the date of November 3rd. That is the date, right? You've all marked it on your calendars. So again, we've provided direction. That direction will include a press release, again, immediately following the meeting next week, which will summarize the project. It will reference things about the costs in a very generic way, because we don't know the funding. You know, Ted mentioned earlier, it's at the state, we're waiting for approval. And we can say those things, we should say those things. People need to know that there's work that's gone on over a period of time, and we're still waiting. However, we know how important it is to the community to know where you are in the process. And as soon as we have costs and funding amounts and things along those lines, we are going to share them. We're going to scream them from the mountaintops. You've provided me with some very good information just today in hearing some of the concerns of your neighbors, people seeing you at the store, people knocking on your door, raising questions. These questions, these kinds of things that happen all the time in every community that puts forth the referendum will be addressed in a variety of documents which will be made available to the public, beginning with an FAQ sheet, with the press information that we share, with the social media components that we've talked about in the initial conversation back, when were we here, May. All of that will be laid out in a plan. Now, the plan has changed a couple of times, and I'm going to get a refined timeline to you right away, so that some of those dates will be identified, and you will know any day of the week where we are and what's happening and what's coming up next, so that there are no surprises. There's also something else that I heard tonight that I think would be of benefit to you that we had mentioned, and I seem to forget, but I think it's important. We need to provide you with talking points. The 5 or 6 major elements that you need to be sharing with the public every time you have an opportunity to. Because without the board sharing the same relevant, important information in these little tidbits of, these little talking points, it will avoid confusion, it'll avoid you scrambling for answers, and, because people will stop you in the store, people will reach out to you while you're out in the public. So we want to develop those talking points for you as well. To this point, we have already collected voter data from the county office. We've developed some logo samples and some things to identify every bit of communication that we put forth related to the referendum, so that people start to see and visualize and identify, oh, that's about the referendum. It's not the standard district logo. It's a little something different. And I brought it with me. If I can give a copy, if you want, I'll leave it for you all to take a look at and say, oh yeah, that looks cool, and that'll be on everything, every flyer, every newsletter, everything, even the section of the website dedicated to the referendum will have that heading, will have that masthead, so people say, oh, that's referendum. That's about the referendum. I can pass, I made copies.
Oh, yeah, one. We'll pass it on.
Okay.
Yeah,
And in the meantime, Ted has provided me with all the architectural drawings, the educational specifications, the enrollment report. I have everything I need, and Andrea's going to get me stuff too. So what we will do is take all of that information and put it into all the various tools that we will use to help you articulate what the referendum is, why you need it, what's in it, and how important it is for people to vote on November 3rd. So the timeline, again, every activity minus, every activity is identified here. Every meeting that you have scheduled, the project announcement, your calendar dates related to, you have school holidays, your PTA and PTO meetings, those are all on the calendar. Why? Because those are opportunities to talk about the referendum. And we're going to have materials that can be shared with the attendees at all of those events. We also have talked about an open house and a video series for your people who, number one, people are busy, people who aren't already connected to the schools, who don't have an opportunity necessarily to come into the schools, but at their convenience can visit the section of the website dedicated to the referendum, and from the homepage, an overview of the plan and perhaps a tour of the Learning Center to kind of see the things that are going on there now, and to, again, create an understanding and build momentum leading up to the vote. So that's a broad. I'm going to ask you all to trust. I think we've all been doing this a really long time, and this is a very pivotal time for the district. You've been there before. You've worked very hard to get to this point, and our objective is to make sure that everybody understands the when, the why, the how, the who, and all of those questions. And anything that comes up along the way that we didn't anticipate, because sometimes there are things that we just didn't think about. Very seldom, but they do. And in those instances, we are able to respond swiftly to dispel rumors. We're going to monitor the blogs. You mentioned blogs. We're going to monitor those kinds of things and not respond to them directly. We do not ever do that. We will monitor them, watch them, develop our responses, and use our tools to share the message with the answers to the response, to put down anything that is not factual. And we need your help in that. I mean, you're out there more than I am. I'm not here in town every day. So if you're hearing things, if you're finding out that there's misinformation out there that's being spread, because the misinformation will spread far more quickly than the factual information, then we want to, nip that in the bud. So I need your help in that, and we will develop the responses so you're all understanding what the answer is and how to, again, share that information with the public. We will also convene, if we have people who are willing to do so, we will convene a key communicator group who will assist you in those efforts, because you're only a handful of people and you can't be everywhere, and so there are other like-minded individuals who are willing to share information and, again, tell us what's being said. So we will convene that group as well. Again, if there are people willing to do that, and I think your committee that you convened months ago might be a good starting point, because they understand the process that you've already gone through.
We have a whole list of names for you, Terry Ann.
Fabulous. So we're gonna get together with those folks, and they can be, they're going to do what their name says. They're going to help you communicate, and that's a two-way exchange. So we'll convene with them when we've identified a date. There's a lot that's going to happen in a short period of time. I'm not worried about it. I hope no one else is. We will work the plan according to the plan, but we are fluid enough to alter and make modifications as we need to and as things arise. But I'm very confident that if we stick to the plan, are listening to what's happening out there, and working together, we'll get it done.
Terry, when we do anything involved in the building CRPTO meetings, please make sure you remind me and email me, because I want to make sure that if I can't make it, that at least there's a board member that's going to be there.
Absolutely.
Or more, or two.
Absolutely. I want to be very careful. I know Andrea has something she wants to add. Let me just, that's a good point, and it's always important for the public to realize and recognize that the board is involved. Because oftentimes, if a board member is not there, they say, well, where's the board? Why aren't they here? Isn't this, this is their plan. It isn't your plan. It's the plan for the whole community, right? And you're a part of that, and so it shows your commitment to that. What happens, however, and I try to avoid this in laying the ground rules for those kinds of meetings, is you are there as a resource and as a spokesperson related to this particular situation. What we don't want to see happen is to become a forum for everything else related to the school district. That's what board meetings are for. There are other opportunities for those kinds of discussions. So while we respect the fact that people take the time to participate and attend, as well as yourselves, I don't want you to get sucked in to all the other things that people might choose to bring up at those types of gatherings, because they will, and they try to, and that defeats the whole purpose in that short period of time that we have to get this
We
done.
all do try, everybody has a liaison to a building. They do try to make as many PTO meetings as
Great,
they can. So
great.
to have a board member at a PTO meeting is not going to be, oh, here's one.
Yeah, good.
So they should normally see it from time to time, but everybody always can't make them because they have other obligations.
Of
or
course.
Whatever. So that's why I want to make sure I know I have at least a board member there when we're doing.
Absolutely. And there's other meetings too that occur, that, for example, if there's I'm just using this as one because every town has a recreation group. And let's just say the recreation group says, you know what, we want to hear about this. You want to come and talk to our group. Because you want to talk to anybody who wants to hear. So if you go to those kinds of meetings, that's the same kind of thing. You may not be the regular person there on an ongoing basis, but it's another opportunity to meet people in your community who have concerns related to the project. So there are those kinds of meetings too. And I know Dr. Hibbs is probably going to put out the all call for that, anybody who wants to hear.
And I'll be it.
Yeah, so hopefully everybody will take some time, whether it's the construction committee, whoever it is, it's good to be, represented with more than one individual.
Okay. We have questions for Terry?
Can I add
Sure.
something to that? It's been mentioned that the applications have been submitted and that we're now waiting for the letters from the State Department of Education, referred to as the PEC letters, or preliminary eligible cost letters. Those letters will determine the costs of the project that are eligible for funding. We need that information to prepare the form of the bond proposal. State law requires that we put certain information in the bond proposal, which I think most people would prefer we did not because it gets confusing, so I apologize for that in advance. In addition to authorizing the amount of bonds that will be issued to fund the project, we have to have statements in there that determine the eligible costs determined by the Commissioner of Education and any excess costs that are not eligible for funding. So we need to get that information right off of the PEC letters. Terry had also been concerned about, getting that information so that it's accurate. You don't want to go out with estimates. It's much better to get the information because once a number is planted in everybody's head, it's difficult to dislodge it. So I think that's what you were referring to about getting those PEC letters, and then we can go public with tax impacts and things of that nature. What I'm concerned about, we have until September 4th to get the question to the county election officials, the county clerk and the county election officials. That's because for the annual election, we're required to get the bond proposal to them 60 days prior to the election date. That's because they have so much going on at the general election that they need 60 days instead of the 18 days that are required for special elections. The date that we were originally hoping to adopt the bond proposal is July 28th, but in the event that we don't receive that information in sufficient time to get the bond proposal done, that may have to back out to one of the August meetings. I understand that there's 2 August meetings. So I just wanted to say, that's why we always call these a tentative timetable for the referendum, because things of that nature will slide. So I just wanted to bring to your attention that it may not be July 28th if we don't get the PEC letters in time.
I just want to clarify, because I believe I understand it correctly. No matter what the funding is, the bond stays the same, but that portion gets paid by the funding, and the taxpayers pay the remaining amount. So
That's
it wouldn't
right.
change the amount of the...
Well, we're getting debt service aid for these, right, Ted? Yeah, we've applied for debt service aid, so we will authorize bonds for the full amount, and the state will provide facilities aid in the form of debt service aid, so that they'll pay a ratio of the debt service due each year over the life of the bond issue.
Did that answer your question? Okay. Does anybody else have any other?
Cindy, should I just talk a minute about the overall?
Yeah, Robbie's going to
numbers?
talk a little bit about, because we've been working around, one of the things we had thought we would be able to do, but we can't, is to wrap this debt around, and the state will not allow us to do that. So now, the way Robbie's going to explain how this is going to work in general terms.
Years ago, we used to be able to, we called it backload the debt. If you had debt that was going to be paid off in 3 years, we'd be able to not pay basically much for those 3 years and then really backload the debt and wrap it around. And the state hasn't been allowing that. So the situation with your debt now is that in 2000, there's a couple of pieces here. Between 2017 and 18, your debt service goes down $1 million. And then after 2020, your existing debt goes away. So you're already in the 2016 budget year now. And what we're trying to do is to, in the 2000, between 17 and 18, when that $1 million goes down, I want to try to fill in as much as we can with the new debt and phase in the tax impact. So, right now, it's too early to even talk about a tax impact, but once we get the numbers from the state and find out what your debt service aid is going to be, and I also would like to work with these gentlemen to get a cash flow, because I understand this project's going to take not just 1 year. It's not all going to be done next summer or the summer after that. So that sort of works to your advantage for us to be able to layer in the tax impact. And, there's things we can do. You have a risk of interest rates going up, but districts are able to borrow money for a mechanism called bond anticipation notes. It's a 1-year loan. Right now, if we were going to borrow for a year, the rate would be probably 1%. So if you were going to do $46 million, off the top of my head, I would say to you, get the referendum done, go into July next year, use money that you need to and reimburse yourself, and next year do a note for 1 year, and then you're into the following year's budget. That's when that $1 million drops off. But after talking to Cindy, and I realized this is a multi-year project, I want to get a cash flow from you guys to figure out when you need the cash, so we don't have to sell the bonds all at once. And once we get to that year of 2020, when it's the last year in 2021, the whole goal is to just minimize the tax impact. So we're just all going to be working together in the next couple of months. Once you get your debt service aid from the state, and once I can figure out when you need the cash, we'll sell the bonds in that method so that we can, we're trying to just get to that point to minimize the tax impact, because that's a big number of almost $3.8 million goes away in between 2020 and 21. So we're trying to layer that in. So we don't have numbers yet, but hopefully by the time the whole thing kicks off, we've got a financial plan for you to show how we're going to layer in the tax impact.
Okay.
Anybody have any questions?
All right, thank you very much. Can I just ask everybody just to stay till after our final public session in case members of the public have any further questions that we can't answer?
I have
Yeah,
a
good,
question
sure.
about it.
Sure.
Okay. In the notes that you had sent us,
Mm-hmm.
you said that you were working on the numbers for the, that you were going to have for us for, before next week, because I had asked a question about the staffing and all of that. You'll have those numbers in the green notes next week, I'm assuming?
So, no. So your question for a broken down prediction of costs for staff, teaching aides, ancillary staff,
Right.
transportation, all their costs associated with running kindergarten. We're just not at that point at this moment. No, I will
Because
not.
I thought you said you'd have them before the 28th meeting.
No. It'll be gathered after, well, I put tonight, yes, because tonight was really a time to flush out questions. Yes, we will start to sit down and flush out what all of those look like. Transportation, staff, desks, pencils, pens, those types of things, yes.
We won't have them before the 28th.
You will not have them before the 28th, no. No, you will not.
And no estimate.
I mean, no, you're not going to have, and I don't want to have just a guesstimate. I want to have a realistic prediction of what we need. That's not something you could have necessarily you couldn't have put in the referendum anyway.
No, but that's a number that'll be outside the budgetary number.
Mm-hmm.
That number doesn't,
It's outside of what we have right now.
But
Yes.
it's outside the budget number also.
Yes. Yeah. As of right now, it is, yes.
Can I ask you to clarify what you mean outside of the budget
When we,
number?
that year, when we figure the budget, that number doesn't go inside the budget.
Oh, yes, it does.
Well, are you talking about with bank cap, Sen? If we have to utilize that, or
Yeah,
are
but
you talking?
it's part of the budget.
Sure.
Your
It is
staffing-
part of the budget, but it is not within the 2% cap. No, it's not, Cindy. I called the state, because you keep telling me that. I called the state, and it's not called a waiver anymore, it's called something else, and it's not within the 2% cap. It's not. There is no way a school could ever be built in the district. If we had a rush of students, and we had to build a new school, and we had to staff it, there would be no way that we would be able to put that within a 2% cap. If we had to build a brand-new school with 40, 50 classrooms, we would never be able to put that within the 2% cap and staff it. I called the state, because you keep telling me that. It's not called a waiver any longer. It's called something else. But it is outside the 2% cap. Because you keep telling me no, because I keep calling it a waiver, because that's what it used to be called. And you keep saying me, no, there's no waivers anymore. And I go, okay, and I called the state, and they said, no,
Okay.
it's not called a waiver, it's called blah, 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 blah. And I had it written down, and it's
I'll
not
look
called a
into
waiver
it.
anymore. It's called something else,
What-
and it's
What
outside
did,
the
Bonnie,
cap.
what did you ask the state when you called them?
I called
help me
the Department
understand.
of Education, and because I kept having this conversation, and Cindy keeps telling me because I keep calling it a waiver, and Cindy keeps telling me, no, there's no waivers anymore. And I keep saying, you can't fit into the 2% cap. So I called the Department of Education, and I got to the right department, and I asked. They said, it's not called a waiver, it's called whatever it's called. And it just means, but essentially it's the same thing. And if we have to staff these classrooms with teachers, it is outside the 2% cap. And they went through the whole thing with me, and they said to me, yes, it is outside the.
Now, let me clarify what I've been saying is, it is part of your budget, but there is a thing called an adjustment, okay? Like, for instance, a health benefits adjustment, but it's based on what your current costs are versus what your New Year's costs are, and it's an increase. Like, for instance, the health benefit costs. If your health benefit costs go higher than the state health benefits increase, you could get a waiver. We weren't eligible for it because it didn't work that way for us because our costs are already high and stuff. But it's pegged on what your current year's costs are. There is a waiver for that. But again, that is increased costs. But what we're talking about here is you're not going to put 28 new teachers in 1 year because you're not going to have the enrollment. It's going to be a graduated basis. So that's what I've been saying is that it is part of your budget, but you're not going to put on 28 all in one shot.
So you're saying within the budget, if, let's say we needed the first year 4 teachers, you would have that within the 2% cap within the budget of those 4
And
teachers
if I
and
was,
add it every year?
if we were opening, when we do open the Abbott Center with these classrooms and stuff, I could possibly put that in as a waiver, as an adjustment rather, is what it's called.
So she's saying it's not called a waiver anymore, you're saying it's
It's
called
an adjustment, yes. But it's a mathematical computation. So we might not get it anyways because we're not going to be adding 28 in one shot.
No, we're not adding 28, but depending on how many classrooms we open up and depending on how many staff members.
Correct, but it's going to be, it's a mathematical computation because you could have a very large amount of staff retire and you have that, so your costs are not there to open that up.
As a breakage.
Exactly.
You have a breakage because the people.
Exactly, but it is still part of your budget.
So then, these other costs that you were just referencing, are we looking at like a 3-year projection as to what
Yes.
those costs are? Like an incremental projection?
It
or
could even be
5-year,
longer
or
than
whatever-
that.
Yeah.
Whatever that guesstimation is in terms of how we're going to get this thing fully
Yes.
up and running?
And really, you're talking about staff members because, desks and things of that nature, we could fit into a budget. You're really talking about if our number of kindergarten students enrollment keeps increasing, that's what you're talking about.
You're not necessarily buying all the desks at one time.
No,
absolutely
you don't
not.
have to fill all the
Exactly.
rooms
Right, that's
either.
why there's
No,
money
so
in the
that's what I'm trying to clarify,
Everything's
then,
gonna be
the number that we're looking for then in terms of what you're gonna come back to us with
Starting
at some
point.
point is gonna be for that first year?
Starting point, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, because I mean, you wouldn't want to hire more staff than you would need. You want to hire the staff that you actually do need.
Okay.
We're just not there at this point.
So the executive summary is going to be on the website when?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Just want to also clarify in the green notes,
Is
that
that-
we didn't get any correspondence from the planning
I
board.
read?
You did receive a letter today from the
Yes.
planning board?
Yeah, we got it.
I got a copy of that, so you see that, and we'll be in touch with them.
Well, Cynthia was speaking, I quickly pulled up 50% tax levy capital, and yeah, they do call it an adjustment, and there's a weighted average for.
That's what I couldn't remember.
For increased enrollment, so at one time, under the old capital, which was only on appropriations, they called it, if you opened up a new school, you could get a waiver. They don't do it that way. They wanted to create these hard caps, but they acknowledge the fact that when you have increased enrollment, then you need to provide for them. Now, the construction of facilities is outside the cap when it's done with bonds, because debt service is not included in the cap. But when your general fund cap levy, it will increase by this weighted average for the number of new enrollments that you have.
I haven't looked at it in a long time,
Yeah.
so I once Bonnie started talking a little more and stuff, and then it's like, okay, and it's not, I didn't know the specific parameters of it, because I haven't worked with it for a long
There
time.
was that old, the prior cap law, which was on appropriations, and this is on the tax levy.
Correct.
Thank you.
Very good. Anybody else on referendum? Okay. Thank you, gentlemen, ladies.
You're going to have a public session, don't tell them to leave.
Well, they're going to hang out a few minutes, right, till public
Yeah,
session, if you don't mind?
okay.
Just in case you have questions. Anybody have any old business? Anybody old business?
Oh, I have old business.
Go ahead.
This is not pertaining to any of this.
Sure.
Okay. This has to do with policy. We passed a policy, I don't remember the policy number, doesn't matter. The policy that had to do with the observers in the classroom. I understand why the board did it. It was done, and that's fine. This has to do with another issue, but pertaining to that in a roundabout way. We've spent $4.5 million on security measures in the school, as was brought up when that policy was changed. And as I said, I understand why that was done, and I take security quite seriously. So I bring this up in a very serious manner. The idea that we have a student that comes in from Brookdale, primarily, that sits in the back of the classroom for observation, and that was of great concern to board members, and I thought about it, and I understood their point. And then I thought about that I brought up a flip comment about parents coming into a classroom, and I thought about that. And then I thought about the issue of a report that was that's generated, and I know about this report for years when I was on Freehold Regional, because we dealt with it back then, that's generated by the county, and it's about staff members that are
In trouble.
in trouble. Thank you. I was trying to think of how to say it without...
Done bad things.
Okay. That are in trouble, and it's done a criminal background check, and it's circulated to all the
Qualifying.
staff members. It's the school districts in the county, and then they pick out the staff members that are that have criminal background, criminal issues. And we have the benefit as school districts of getting that report about staff members. But we do not have the benefit of having that report about parents. And I think about that, and we had that situation in Freehold Regional where, as a board member there, we in executive session had to deal with those issues, and it was troublesome to have to deal with that, and to deal with the fact that we would get that report. And we have the benefit of lobby guard, but that only deals with one issue, which is the sexual component. And we have parents that come into the school and have to swipe their driver's license. And we have parents that we know can't come into the schools for other issues, and they could be because of court orders, and we know we have different levels of conduct that make parents not be able to come into schools. And I won't go further than that statement. But we have parents that are involved with PTO that once a year swipe their driver's license and get a ID badge that are PTO identifiers, and they come into the school and they go into the office and do their business. But I have personally seen, through the 5, almost fully 6.5 years that I've been on this board, parents roaming the halls, going into classrooms, saying hi to teachers. I've had a couple different principals through the years say something to me about it. I haven't made a big deal about it because I'm not one to really run up to the superintendent and say something, because that's the principal's job to deal with. I've said to principals, you need to deal with that with the superintendent. And I have a problem with it. And if we're going to say to as a board, we need to change the policy for kids and make them fingerprinted, even though the policy was, and the best practice was, that they were supposed to never be alone in a classroom without a teacher being present, and that was really up to our superintendent to deal with. If the teacher wasn't doing her job and the principal, then I think that we need to do something and have a better conversation about parents free roaming the classrooms. And again, I have seen this, giving teachers high fives, looking in on their kids in the classroom, and really having free reign of the schools. And I think we need to have a better conversation and to deal with this over the summer and have and do something about this. Now, if the parents are going to do this, then I think we need to either fingerprint the parents or lock down the school better when the parents are in the classroom, whether they have to be escorted to where they're going. Something needs to be done, because if we are taking security that seriously, that we can't allow our superintendent and our principals to do their job, and that's okay, and I agree with the board, and I will go along with those policies, then we need to have that conversation.
Okay. Well, look, I don't know if anybody else wants to chime in. Dr. Hibbs, you have to look at the buildings. I think that's your realm to tell us if parents are roaming the halls or not roaming the halls, and whatever procedures to keep our kids safe for parents. I'm not ready to bring parents. I don't know if anybody else wants to have that discussion. But
This is the first that it's being brought. No administrator has ever brought to me that they are uncomfortable with parents in and out high-fiving. I think the first step would be for me to sit down with the admin team and talk about what this actually looks like in the buildings.
But no one brought to you that these 20-hour kids were not being supervised in the classroom either.
But it was brought to a previous superintendent and nothing was done, but it was not brought
To Dr. Hibbs.
to Dr. Hibbs.
No.
And
But when the policy was brought to Dr. Hibbs, he agreed that they should not be left alone either. And agreed with the policy.
But he wasn't given the chance to even find out from his admin team if in fact that was happening.
When a motion
So-
was made, a motion was seconded, the board voted, and the procedure
I
was followed,
understand.
we have a policy.
And I'm not.
If you want to make a motion to favor parents, you can do that.
No. I'm just saying that the conversation
Needs to be had.
should have,
Yeah,
and
that's why I said Dr. Hibbs.
And
Yeah.
that's why I'm just saying, if we take security seriously, and as I said, we do not have the benefit of having criminal background checks. Like, as I said, there is a report that is generated. How often is that report generated?
Every week.
Is it weeks then?
Every week.
Yeah.
But you're talking about parents, the PTO moms that are in the schools all the time, it's a handful of them. It's not every parent that's walking in the schools every day. It's a handful of
Let Dr.
parents
Hibbs do
that,
his study and
okay,
come back
I'm
with
just
some
saying it's
policy.
not all the parents out there.
I didn't say it was all.
I mean,
parents.
there's a
All you need
handful
is
of
one
parents.
All you need is one parent. We don't know where that parent is. They could be going into the bathroom. That bathroom is open. You don't know where that parent could be going. They're unsupervised. And you don't know if that parent has a criminal background. We don't know who those parents are. Just like-
Added to the administrative retreat.
Okay. Anybody else for old business? New business, before I open up, I want to welcome Robin. That's my new business for today, because I wasn't able to get the last meeting. Welcome Robin to the dais, and
Yay, Robin.
very glad that you came on to
Thank
the
you.
board and applied, and
Thank you,
look
everyone.
forward to working together with you.
Ditto.
Absolutely.
Anybody else have new business? Okay, final public session, open to any item. Any member of the public wish to address the board on any item? Sure. Need a name, address, and a microphone, sir?
Thank you. Edwin Madari, 2 Regal Drive, 07751. Having attended today's meeting, I'm not sure I understand the referendum and the amounts that are being discussed. And the discussion itself has been, no disrespect for anybody, but very vague and not factual. Yep, mathematical computations can be done. Every room, every door, every R factor of every surface can be determined, and they all can be added up, and a number can be determined. And the long-range plan, I hope you as board members got a detailed breakdown of what is needed and what is not needed. And I, as a member of public, I might not get it, but I hope you got it. If not, then I myself don't see supporting the referendum regarding any amount that's going to come up. I'm sorry to say that, but unless I'm convinced, I will not be doing it. Thank you.
We will do our best. First of all, anybody else in the public wish to address the board on any item? We will certainly do our best to convince, as Terry has said, through her presentation, the public of what needs to be done, why it needs to be done, and the cost involved. Terry, is there anything else you'd like me to say to that?
Well, this was just a preliminary.
Just a preliminary,
discussion.
yeah.
That's why it was
Yeah.
sort of
Yeah.
thing.
Tonight, just preliminary on the board agreeing to what items, then starts the
In-depth,
in-depth, I won't say convincing, but
in-depth
the
discussion.
discussion.
Convincing is a word I don't like to use.
No, it's more in-depth
But I
discussion
know,
for the public.
but absolutely, it has to start somewhere.
Yeah.
You've done all of that background. Edwin, is it?
Yes.
Yeah, and Edward, I'm sure, is not alone. A lot of people just don't have enough information, and without information, they can't make decisions. So in the absence of that, they will either stay home or search for the information. And our goal and our objective is to make sure that we provide all the information they need so they can feel comfortable making a decision. We're not telling them what decision to make. That's entirely up to them. But at least they will be informed and understand. And if at any point in time there is not an answer to a question that someone has, as he's pointed out, you've been given a lot of information. It's probably just sorting through it all to get the exact answer to the specific question. But I'm very confident that all the work you've already done will help people like Edwin to become more informed, so that they can make a decision on November 3rd.
Thank you, ma'am. All righty, since we'll be having no executive session tonight, I will make a motion to adjourn, which is seconded by Craig. And all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody against? And we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight.